Howdy, folks. In this video, we're going to continue the increment and decrement conversation that we were having in the previous videos. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to talk about different ways you can essentially increase the value of a certain variable. For example, let's talk about int songs by, make sure to use camel casing, by the weekend equals, let's say that starts at 0, and then he starts making music. Songs by, okay, that's very long variable name. I should just say songs weekend. Right, so songs weekend. Now we talked about how you can increment by doing plus plus. That's one way, but this only increases by 1. Let's say that the weekend releases a new album, Dawn FM. And he releases, like, I don't know how many songs there are in Dawn FM, but like, let's say there's like 20. So he releases like 20. So I want to increase songs weekend by 20. So let's ignore this statement. Let's just make this a comment. I'm just going to make this statement a comment. Ignore all of that. Just make this a comment. And then, so I'm going to do songs weekend. Now, I think we talked about this in some previous videos, but what you can do is you can do songs weekend equals songs weekend plus 10. So it's not like math where this 0 is not equal to 10 because 0 is not equal to 0 plus 10. No, that's not the case. What we're doing is this is an assignment operator, not an equal sign in the traditional sense we think about it as. So the songs weekend plus 10, which is going to become 10, is going to be stored in songs weekend. So it's going to update the variable. That's another way to do it, but there's another way. The other way is actually a little bit more elegant. And you might be using this a whole lot once you learn it. So let me teach it to you. So songs weekend, again, I'm going to add it by 10. You can, instead of doing all of this rather, confusing and annoying stuff, you can just remove all, well, not remove all of this, but remove this here because you don't want to type it again. We already know it's songs weekend, so you can remove that. And then we can swap the plus and the equals sign. Swap them over. So remove the variable and swap equals and plus. That's essentially what you can do. Now, it's not always going to be plus. It could also be minus. It could be times. It could be divide, the forward slash for the divide. But what you do is you just remove the variable and you swap. Don't memorize that. It's just kind of obvious. I'm going to do some examples and it'll become obvious. So the other way, so what this is going to become when you do all of that is it's just going to become very important, plus equals 10. You can do that. This is going to add 10 to songs weekend. Let's say that songs weekend, let's say that some of them were copyright claimed or something, I don't know, and 2 of them were removed. You can do songs weekend equals songs weekend minus 2, or you could do songs weekend minus minus, and then another songs weekend minus, which is kind of slow. So let's not do that. You can do songs weekend minus equals. That's also something you can do. Just like plus equals, you can do minus equals 2. Now, just to continue, you can also do songs weekend times equals something. In addition, you can also do songs weekend divide equals something. All of these are going to do exactly what you think they're going to do. This is going to do songs weekend. It's going to take songs weekend. It's going to divide it by 2, well, rather multiply by 2, and then store it in songs weekend. This is going to divide. This is going to subtract, and this is going to add. Basically, what's happening here? It's, that's a rather long way to just say, just introduce you to these new ways of increment and, well, new ways of multiplying, adding, subtracting, and dividing to a variable. Let's move over to the IDE to talk about some examples.
All right, so now let's now talk about the increment decrement operator, but expand onto it. So as a note, let's say there's 3 ways we can increment. So the first way you can say is I plus plus. So put that in comments, I plus plus. That's the first way you can do it. The second way is I equals I plus 1. And the last way you can actually say it, the elegant way, as Pranav mentioned earlier, is I plus equals 1. So those are basically 3 ways that you can increment, and they all mean the same thing. But for I plus plus specifically, it allows you only to increment by 1. For the other 2, you can switch to 1 actually to some number like 2. So you can add 2 instead and store that in the value of I for the second and third. But for I plus plus specifically, you can only do it by 1. And that's basically how it works. Yeah, and you can also do I plus equals 69. So now we're going to be pulling up an example to demonstrate it. So let's say we have an int variable, right? So int Mr. Beast subscriber count, Mr. Beast 600 equal, oh, we can replace that with 6,000, yes. But first of all, let's say we're starting at 0, right? Because every time we start a YouTube channel, we're always going to start at 0. But we see here that he has a lot of subscribers right now. So let's now say, but actually, let's say Mr. Beast 6,000, and let's say plus equals 96. And now in comments, 96 is in millions. It's basically how many subscribers he has right now. So 96 million right now. And what this basically is doing is Mr. Beast 6,000 equals Mr. Beast 6,000 plus 96. That's another way you can actually say it. But so you can put that in comments. So that's the same way as saying Mr. Beast 6,000 equals Mr. Beast 6,000 plus 96. Or, and we have to make sure we use forward slash. When you have multi-line comments, you do forward slash asterisk, and then we end it asterisk forward slash. So Mr. Beast 6,000 plus 96 is another way we can also represent that. But usually, if you want to just type less, you could just go for the one above. So let's now say that, oh, his subscriber count also increased by 96. And that's basically how you can increment a certain variable by a certain amount. So like the first video we showed on increment, we only represent by 1. But we can also increment by or decrement by a certain number rather, instead of just incrementing or decrementing by 1. And keep in mind that for for loops, as we mentioned before, the increment and decrement operator we represented was incrementing or decrementing by 1. But you can also do plus equals 96, and that's gonna basically do it accordingly. So that's one thing you can keep in mind, is that you can also use these increment and decrement in a for loop as well. All right, so hopefully we should get the answer 96 plus 96. So let's print out the result of that. So let's do system out println below that line, system out println Mr. B 6,000. And make sure we end that with a semicolon. And now let's run our program. And hopefully it should print out 96 plus 96, which is the result 192. And that's basically how we can increment a certain variable by a number that doesn't have to be 1. It can be any number in that case. But let's just say that if his subscriber count increased heavily, and let's say his subscriber count increased by a factor of 96 in that case, then you would say, so in the first line you say times equals, which is essentially saying you're doing Mr. B 6,000 equals Mr. B 6,000 times 96, which is basically increasing that variable by a factor of 96. But now let's run the result and let's see what the result is going to be. So somehow it's printing out 0. Now, when you multiply a number by 0, it's always going to be 0, right? So that's important thing we need to keep note of is whenever you're trying to do something like this, we need to make sure that we have an initial variable that is a value of not 0. So let's change it to 1 in that case. And now let's run it. And hopefully it should print out 96. 96. And therefore, that's our result. Let's now not show minus equals or divide equals, well, because we don't want Mr. B subscribers to go down. We always want to make sure that his subscriber count is always growing. But the important thing to know is that plus equals, minus equals, times equals, divide equals all work the same way, as Pranav mentioned earlier. And that's pretty much how increment and decrement operators works for the second part. But definitely Mr. Beast will end up reaching 192 million subs. That will definitely happen one day. So that's basically what we wanted to talk about in this video. Thanks for watching.